We are back with week 4 of the Smogon Champions League, a tournament with tiers from Ubers to PU and Little Cup and Smogon doubles, and this time we have 3 games from the UU tier. But first, we start off with a 580 turn OU game featuring a stall team with Pokemon like Unaware, Clefable, and Toxapex. Slowking Galar has Future Sight, which ordinarily forms a powerful offensive core with Pokemon like Urshifu Rapid. But here, the Toxapex has Light Screen to effectively stop that type of attack. Light Screen lets it live any combination of Future Sight plus another strong move. That's one way the balanced team cannot really make progress versus the stall team. Another way of making progress versus teams is through hazards like Stealth Rock. If you can knock off Pokemon and remove their heavy duty boots, then all of a sudden you can start racking up damage with Stealth Rock. The stall team doesn't actually have any form of hazards on the team, and the balanced team's Ferrothorn is the only Pokemon with Stealth Rock. But here, the Ferrothorn gets lured and KO'd by Flamethrower Slowking, which means neither player is going to have Stealth Rock up. On top of that, both players have 2 regen Pokemon, which means by switching back and forth between them, they have a way to gain HP without wasting PP. There are some entanglements like when Urshifu Rapid hits Dragonite with the uncommon Ice Punch, or when Tapu Koko gets a critical hit to KO Slowking, but the root issue is going to be the Toxapex. The only Pokemon that can beat Toxapex are walled by the teammates. For example, Landorus is always walled by Corviknight, and Tapu Koko is always walled by Gastrodon. The game looks like it's going to devolve into a regen switching match and possibly a tie. But then, after more than 200 turns, the Clefable reveals that it has Calm Mind, and this becomes a very nasty endgame. Clefable has 32 PP of Calm Mind, and with Ferrothorn gone, the only way to beat Clefable is with Slowking Galar. However, Slowking Galar's Sludge Bomb only has 16 PP, and there's also a Corviknight. Without Sludge Bomb, Clefable can actually beat Slowking Galar. That means Clefable can try and Calm Mind to force in Slowking Galar, and then it can switch out to pressure Corviknight and waste 2 PP of Sludge Bomb. It becomes a very losing game to try and play against that, and the other Pokemon can't break Toxapex and friends. You would have to basically predict the Corviknight switch in every single time without any mistakes. In the end, the Clefable Corviknight core ends up running Slowking Galar out of Sludge Bomb PP, and it Calm Minds to the max where it ends up winning on turn 580. Next we have an Ubers game where Aberforth is using a Focus Sash Swords Dance lead Landorus T. Landorus as a lead has its main goal of getting Stealth Rock up. It uses Swords Dance not to try and win the game, but as a means to an end. A lot of the more flimsy defoggers can't take on Swords Dance Landorus, and you would have to go to a really physically defensive Pokemon to beat it. Landorus uses that as a way to get up Stealth Rock. It also has a very threatening explosion which can scare away a lot of Pokemon. Here, Landorus lures and removes Ho-Oh with an unexpected Rock Tomb. Landorus will later go down to Zygarde, who has enough physical defense to beat it, but Landorus' job is done and more. Not only did it get Stealth Rock up, it got a KO too. Landorus dying brings in a free switch to Xerneas. Unfortunately, Blissey does wall Xerneas. In fact, Blissey even uses the move Confide in Ubers to stop Geomancy. Xerneas is one of the top special attackers in the tier, so your special wall needs to be able to take it on. Almost all Blisseys do in fact run Confide. But then, Xerneas reveals the move Endeavor. Because Blissey has such a high HP stat, even an Endeavor from 76% does a lot of damage. It becomes a very challenging spot here. You can't really try to damage Xerneas because then it can substitute again and increase the power of Endeavor even more. From the point of view of the stall team, Blissey does have just enough power points, along with Protect Excadrill, to be able to stall out Xerneas out of Moonblast. It would take all of Blissey's soft-boiled PP to do it, but it can barely hang on. But there's a problem. Xerneas isn't trying to win the game all on its own. It's actually trying to set up its teammate. Xerneas is so demanding that you have to use a lot of resources to stop it, but that opens up the other special attackers on the team. With Blissey and Excadrill both running low on HP, the team becomes very vulnerable to special attackers like Meteor Beam Eternatus. Xerneas runs Blissey out of PP, and then switches out itself once it runs out of Moonblast PP. Then Eternatus, with a combination of Dynamax Cannon, Sludge Bomb, and Meteor Beam, is able to beat the rest of the team and get the win. Xerneas did its job of weakening the Blissey. We now go to the UU tier where we see a lead Excadrill. Its goal is to get Stealth Rock up and use Rapid Spin to keep opposing Stealth Rock off. But the key here is Hydreigon. Hydreigon is one of the more powerful special attackers. Unfortunately, almost every special attacker is shut down by Chansey. But this isn't a special attacking Hydreigon. It's actually a physical Hydreigon with Dragon Dance, and it does its job perfectly by pretending to be special and bringing in Chansey. Physical Hydreigon isn't scary if you know it's coming, but sometimes all you need is one turn to break open a game. Salamence goes down after getting an Intimidate off, and then they go to physically defensive Amoonguss. But it turns out Hydreigon wasn't just a physical attacker either, it was both. It was a mixed attacker, and it uses Life Orb Fire Blast to knock out Amoonguss. After Salamence sacrificed itself for Intimidate, Chansey can barely take on Hydreigon. But that only brings in a new problem. Offensive Meteor Beam Celesteela, a special attacker who can take advantage of the fact that Chansey is at low health. It one-hit KOs Thundurus trying to switch in, and now Chansey can use this as a chance to heal, but the damage is already done. There's no way to switch into Secret Sword Keldeo anymore, and it's cleanup from there and the hyper-offensive team gets the win. In the next UU game we see the same strategy with Excadrill again, only this time it's paired with Dragon Dance Necrozma. Necrozma uses its ability Prism Armor to tank a hit and then reveals X-Scissor to beat Dark types who would normally try and beat the Psychic type. Then, once it looks like it's a Dragon Dance physical sweeper, it reveals Heat Wave to do big damage to Cobalion, who has a high physical defense but low special defense. Although Necrozma faints, it sets up the rare Dragon Dance Salamence perfectly. The main physically defensive Pokemon was weakened by Necrozma, and the Fairy type on the team happens to be Tapu Bulu, who is weak to Dual Wing Beat. Even if you outplay the Salamence into using Outrage, Tapu Bulu doesn't really have a move that can punish Salamence, and it leads to an easy Salamence win. Finally, we have one more UU game, this time a battle between two hyper-offensive teams. Skarmory is another type of UU lead, and in exchange for not having Rapid Spin, it has Taunt, Spikes, and it has Sturdy built in, so it doesn't need to use an item like Focus Sash. In the 1v1 War of Leads, Excadrill can keep off Skarmory's Stealth Rock because of Rapid Spin, and it can outspeed Skarmory's Taunt to get its own Stealth Rock. In a vacuum, it does win the 1v1 lead matchup. Excadrill faints first, but this is intentional and expected out of a lead because now it brings in a chance to go to whatever Pokemon you want. In this case, Polteagist. Unfortunately, it looks like Poltergeist and Skarmory have the same speed stat, but Poltergeist is able to win the speed tie and Shell Smash before getting taunted by Skarmory. Hyper-offensive teams don't naturally have a lot of defense because their goal is to attack before getting attacked, and if they can't do that, they end up in big trouble. Nothing on the team has enough special defense to take on a Shell Smash Poltergeist, and it turns into an anticlimactic easy win for the Excadrill hyper-offense. Finally, we have NU where Pokémon is using a team with Tauros as the main attacker. Tauros gets burned on turn 2 by Flame Body Talonflame while trying to use Body Slam, but it turns out that that's okay because it also has the move Facade to turn into a powerful attacker. The key though is being able to beat Vaporeon. Vaporeon is one of the best walls in the tier and it's difficult to break down. Meanwhile, one of Charm Flash's best attackers is Jinx with Nasty Plot. AIM gets a Hurricane Confusion to barely escape versus Jinx the first time around, but Vaporeon has Wish, which means it can try and bring Jinx back to full, especially versus weaker Pokemon like Mantine. It's gonna become a fight to see who can get their attackers in, but it's tougher for AIM because unlike Jinx, Tauros doesn't have heavy duty boots and it's also taking burn damage every turn. Burn also means that it can't use any of its coverage well and can basically only use Facade. However, he does get into position with Serena versus Vaporeon, but then Vaporeon dodges the Power Whip to stay alive. Jinx is too threatening and picks up a KO every time it comes in, only to be forced out by Tauros after that and they keep trading attacks. But then, AIM reveals the last trick up his sleeve and reveals Healing Wish Indeedee to heal up Tauros and cure its burn. It gives new life to his most powerful attacker, letting it use its other coverage moves too and not only the move Facade. Unfortunately though, the Healing Wish play doesn't solve the major problem, Vaporeon. Vaporeon can and does beat Tauros 1v1, and AIM goes on to get his first loss of the season. That's it for today. The standings should be on the screen, and if you like this video, make sure to check out last week's recap if you haven't already.